Alrighty, love a dramatic pause before starting an event. Welcome everyone to the third and final We See You Shine Mixtape lunchtime event. These are a new series, a little bit like a tasty cheese platter on your lunchtime to get a bit of a bite about what's happening across the state. These sessions were actually curated with some of our 2025 winners and finalists of the MAVlab Innovation Awards and this year's awesome sector partners that are doing incredible and collaborative and innovative work, but also helping to champion that within the state and in our councils. So you have landed on the third session, which is really all about infrastructure and programs and resilience. So you'll see that thread moving through today's agenda. I would like to kick off by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Victoria and recognise their continuing connection to lands, waters and culture. I'm up here in Preston, City of Darebin, which is traditional land of the Wurundjeri Wurrung peoples, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past and present and acknowledge stories, tradition, cultures and aspirations of First Peoples. And I think today, being all about stories and sharing those stories is a nice nod to that continuing legacy. So we've got a really jam-packed agenda, but before we get into that, a huge shout out to our incredible partners, without which we would not be able to celebrate incredible innovation across the state. So please take a moment to look at these logos and organisations and commit them to memory, to people you should partner with and collaborate with and reach out to. So I'm going to hand over to Justin in just a second from JLT Public Sector, and he's going to open the session, but we do have a jam-packed agenda. These are lightning talks, 5 minutes each. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat or hold them till the end. We will have some time, but we're going all over from a whole range of issues, so it will be really diverse. And a final reminder that tomorrow at 5:59 p.m. we're closing our Innovation Awards, and we've already had over 100 entries as of this morning. So really excited to learn about all your stories. Justin, how are you feeling? Can I hand the mic to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gemma.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I love supporting the MAVlab. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job bringing a real energy to the sector around the innovation. As I just try and... Can you see my screen now? Hope you can, because I can't. This is really eating into my 5 minutes and testing my IT skills all at once.
Looks gorgeous.
So I just wanted to, I guess, talk briefly about a project we're working on out of our Queensland office, and it's around a community protection mutual. So quick bit about JLT Public Sector. We are risk and insurance providers to the local government sector. We've been in the business for 50 years. We're part of the Marsh group of companies. So Marsh are a large global corporate. We specifically focus on local government, and we have about a 97% market share across the country of local government associations as councils. So what we're working on at the moment is a community protection mutual. Now, part of our history going back 50 years, in the 90s, and this might be a bit of a history lesson for some of you, there was an insurer called HIH in Australia that collapsed. They held a whole load of public liability insurance policies. And when they collapsed, it was really, really difficult to even buy insurance cover. So councils were really struggling. So what we did at that time, what JLT Public Sector, I wasn't in the business at that point. I think I was just finishing uni at that point. But what we did was form a mutual, so form essentially a separate, our own insurance company purely for councils for their public liability risk. So we essentially pooled funds into the mutual that was still owned by the councils, and then bought very large layers of reinsurance above so that we could facilitate councils to keep doing everything that they do and be covered for public liability or damage to third-party property or bodily injury. So fast forward to 2026, and there's this issue now that's coming about in a cost of living crisis called the insurance protection gap. You may have heard this. Swiss Re estimate that the insurance protection gap globally is around $280 billion. Now, the gap is essentially the difference between what insurers are willing to offer for insurance coverage and what the community or the purchaser, whether that's a business or an individual, can actually purchase. So if they can afford to purchase what the insurers can offer, great, no gap. If they can only afford to purchase this much, this is the gap in the middle. So that's uninsured. So we're seeing a lot of this now as premiums escalate significantly with communities around, particularly in regional areas, to do with catastrophe insurance. So you see Lismore floodplains in the news. You see Southwest Queensland, which is where this project is commenced. There's huge gaps. Premiums for farmers are going from $50,000 to $200,000 a year. Now that's more than they earn. So does the farm continue, or do they just have to, pack up and try and sell to somebody? So these are real regional issues that we're seeing. So what we've started doing is we've pulled together a load of organisations in Southwest Queensland. There's a regional organisation of councils there. We've been talking to them about forming a community protection mutual specifically for their catastrophe floods, so that it will make insurance for the farms, for the businesses, for the individual houses who are in these floodplains. It'll make it more affordable by pooling the funds from everyone that purchases insurance and seeking to buy insurance above those levels. So what drove this initially was, fairly familiar story. You've seen all of these type articles in the Australian. We have been talking to a range of organisations. Interestingly, the Insurance Council of Australia, the ICA, are the peak body for insurers, kind of like MAV are for councils in Victoria. The ICA is to insurers in Australia. They got wind of our plan and our partnership to build this mutual and said, no, that's bad, that'll never work. That's garbage. Insurers are here, we'll take the risk. Which sort of made us laugh a little bit, because insurers have been there for 150 years and this is the position we're in, and they haven't done anything about it. So the fact that we're challenging the status quo actually gave us a lot of kudos to continue. So what we've done is we've pulled together these organisations, and I've got to stress this is embryonic stage at the moment. So we've pulled together these organisations, importantly, the federal government and the Queensland Reconstruction Authority. We've got some of the major insurers, Swiss Re being one, IAG and Vero, who are Suncorp in Queensland. And CSIRO is really important from a data perspective. We're pulling them together and we're undergoing a feasibility study for this project at the moment. It's really promising. There's a meeting on Thursday in Canberra, actually, with David Littleproud, the Nationals leader, to get him on board. And there's a lot of politicking going on in the background to try and push this forward. But overall, early signs are very, very successful at the moment. So we're hoping that we can push this forwards and hopefully solve some of this protection gap issue for the communities. Now, whilst this is in Queensland, this has enormous application to pick up and place down in Victoria or Tasmania or any other state, particularly around our catastrophe exposures. So whether that's earthquake down in Gippsland, whether it's flood, 3 years ago, we saw the 4 years ago, the 2022 floods. We had 14 client councils affected, and significant losses just to the councils, let alone the community. So hopefully this can start bridging that protection gap. How did I go with my 5 minutes, Gemma?
Nailed it, Justin. Absolutely brilliant.
Nailed it?
Nailed it. Incredible. I'm going to hand over to the amazing Stevie Meyer at City of Darebin, where I am, to tell us about their incredible social housing project. Stevie, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Gemma. It's great to be announced as the amazing at the start of my name. That'll go down nicely for the rest of my life, really. Look, thank you for having me. My name's Stevie Meyer. I'm the Coordinator of Strategic Planning here at the City of Darebin, and I am just about to try and share my slides, so just give me one tick. It's never a smooth process, is it? Let's try this. Right, can we see that?
Stunning.
Great. So I'm here to talk about the harbour. The harbour is a 50-year lease of council land pilot that Darebin ran a few years ago now. But at that time, it was not a very common type of housing development, and the pilot being Darebin was we understand was one of the first councils to try developing land into social housing as a long-term lease. So we certainly weren't at all sure that this would be a successful endeavour. But obviously I'm here to talk about exactly how successful that was, which is really exciting. So what is it? It's now a 6-storey apartment building with 39 dwellings, and it's 100% social housing, including 1 and 2 bedrooms, car parking at ground floor, 5 specialist disability accommodations, and it's also got excellent sustainability features, being 7-star NATHERS and 5-star Green Star, which is something that was really important to council from the outset, as one of the first councils to declare climate emergency in Australia, but also to ensure that the people utilising this land in the long term don't have increasing housing costs pushed onto them as our climate is heating up. So we were able to, or lucky enough to pilot the RFP process, which was successful, and we leased to a community housing provider called Housing Choices, and they delivered this fabulous building. It was also designed by 6 Degrees Architects. We were also lucky enough to have the financial viability stars align, because we kicked off the project with a $1 million grant already committed by the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, and they partnered with council on that. And we were also lucky enough for the Big Housing Build program run by the state government to be able to help provide grants to build the social housing. And in terms of, sorry, I'm just trying to go to the next slide. There we go. In terms of the impact, what impact did it lead to? You'll see a range of quotes from the wonderful people involved in our partner organisations in this development. I won't go through them, but feel free to read them. I think the main impact that I think that it has in terms of being a council-initiated project that was a pilot, and it was undertaken by council in the context where community support was not guaranteed. We actually did face a fair bit of community opposition with this development, and the feasibility was uncertain at the time too. So generally it is something that demonstrates that if you give it a go, that this model can succeed. That's not to say that that will always be the case, but we were lucky enough to have the stars align with this one. The other major impact is that it's all homes have been fully leased to applicants from the Victorian Housing Register, prioritising people on low incomes, people with disabilities, and supporting the LGBTIQ+ community through partnering with the Thorn Harbour Health. In terms of takeaways and learnings, look, I think there is many, but I won't go through them all. We don't have long today. So I would probably like to raise the one that sticks with me the most, which is uncertainty in success shouldn't necessarily be a barrier to starting a project and giving it a go. Yes, you need to have the right authorising environment, especially from council, the communities, and the circumstances of the site that you're dealing with. However, we shouldn't only greenlight sure thing projects. I think because a lot of us are in a more fiscally constrained environment, we're becoming more risk averse. over time. So I always just like to point out this project as an example of, giving the green light to projects where certainty isn't necessarily a sure thing, because really innovation comes from uncertainty, and with the right ingredients, you can make a hell of a difference from trying something new. And so that's it. Happy to take questions later. I believe I'm handing over to Alex from SenSen. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Gorgeous, Alex. Go for it.
Yeah, just checking. Just want to check. Yeah. Okay. So I think just a little bit about me. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to present. A little bit about me. I've been serving or working with local government in the UK and Australia for the last 13 years. And one thing that's really prevalent is the fact that it's a very complementary industry. Each council learns from each other. And that kind of resonates with a lot of things that we are doing at SenSen as well. It's more of a problem-solving industry, working together. And this session is probably another testament to it. A little bit about us. So we are an ASX listed company. We've got multiple branches around the world, but our head office is in Melbourne, City Road. And we are in the market of pretty much providing not behind the desk AI, but more to do with the frontline AI. And so if you take our system, the core is this platform that we call Sendiza. So it takes any camera, sensor, any sort of data, and then fuses it all together. And the most important thing here is that it contextualizes it and then gives you an output. So with local government, we're in multiple verticals. So from parking, but today we're going to cover roads and infrastructure and asset management, where our solution named SenMap is in play. So if you take your asset register, not to have a dig at you or criticize local government, but most asset registers are outdated, or what I would call historical fiction. That's what I've been speaking to a lot of councils. They find it very difficult to maintain it. And it's not really a council problem, it's more of a math problem. There's about $500 billion worth of assets under management, and it's funded by 3 to 4% of tax take. And out of which 51 billion is under some sort of poor condition or bad condition in terms of assets. So one critical question is, what do we have on our register? And then the second question is, what state is it in? And so for that, we've come up with this solution called SenMap, and I'm going to follow it up with a few elements of how we do it. So in terms of how it's done, we work with you councils to ensure that you plan your route, and then any surface level roads, assets are then monitored, and then we pretty much go out and capture the data. So you can do it, we can do it. We have different point solutions in terms of hardware, in terms of video capture. You could have it as easy as mounting it up on your car, or you could have one of our solutions running around as well. And then our Sendiza platform processes it. But then that's what's really important, is there's also a human element where there's QA and validation, and then we deliver it to your different third-party systems. So the first part is the mapping. So this, imagine taking, driving around and being able to map all your different surface assets, from parking signs to fire hydrants to advertisement boards to anything that's on the surface. The solution has become very robust, where it can pick up pretty much almost any object that has been predefined. We do about 40 plus different types of objects. And then we can work with you to define new benchmarks as well. And if you take Wollongong, we did 170 kilometers of road. We mapped all their signs, and that led to them being able to make really good informed decisions in terms of their parking per se. But it doesn't stop with parking. With Toronto in Canada, we've done about 5,500 different sorts of assets, multiple different categories, and it just reduced their cost structure of fleet maintenance by 25%. So that nicely feeds into not just stopping with asset mapping, where we give you context, we give you a video, we give you an image, and then GPS coordinates that then can be ingested into ArcGIS or QGIS or whatever your GIS is. But it also takes it one step further. So imagine going down the same route, but now it's picking up the condition of each of these objects, from roadkill to potholes to sign damages to crackings on roads. We have 40 different types of defects that we do it out of the box. So imagine doing that and doing it really fast and cost effectively as well. So Transport for New South Wales, we did a stint there, captured close to around 54,800 detections in 200 kilometers of roads. And that was then used as a reactive measure, as a proactive measure compared to a reactive measure where you get all these requests coming in saying there are cracks here, there are potholes here, the line markings are missing, and so on. So just to give you a little bit of what it looks like, so assume it's a pothole, it gives it a confidence score, and then it comes up very clearly. And so instead of council being reactive to fixing these things, you're in a position now to be proactive, and it's cost effective, so you can do this on a continuous basis. Now, one of the key things here is that while you can do this on continuous runs, it then starts giving you predictability scores as well. So it then starts predicting that, okay, within about 6 months, this is your wear and tear, and this is where it might end up with. You can kind of predict there's going to be a crack here, there's going to be a pothole here in 12 months. So you can be very proactive in terms of how you move forward with associating yourself with the construction of it. So this is graffiti, for example. So it just picks it up. It's on the far left there. It's analyzed it and it's picked it up. Like this, you'll have like 40 plus detections. And it even, for example, picks up some roadkill, DRS kangaroo. So one system to manage the mapping, one system to manage the detection component. So why is this really important, right? So this is factual. I can send you some sources as well. But for every dollar you preserve, you spend the dollar to preserve at an early stage, you save $6 to $10 of rehabilitation in the future. So it's really important that this happens early rather than late. Now, one thing that's really important here, and why a lot of councils find it very difficult and spend a lot of money doing, paying consultants, and it's usually a 12-month project, is because that's kind of the industry norm. But now you don't have to do that anymore. And by the time you consult and do a 12-month project, your pothole would have had its birthday as well. So this solution allows, how you could take things one step further, and it's quite accurate. It's got a 97% accuracy, but then the human element as well then takes it up further. And that's a bit about our solutions and the different councils we've worked with. We've worked with multiple councils, Darebin, Wollongong, City of Brisbane, and we're now currently in the process of working with City of Port Phillip to do it as well for all their bays and line markings as well. And that's just a little bit about us. I'm handing it over to Santiago and Lorna from Darebin. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I think that Santiago is being held up. So what I might do is I might hand over to the incredible Toby Kent at the Infrastructure Sustainability Council and get you to kick us off, Toby, and then we'll come back to Santiago if you can join.
Yeah, now I understand how Stevie feels. That is a very warm and generous introduction. Thank you, Gemma. So listen, I'm going to just share a little bit about I'm assuming not everyone knows the Infrastructure Sustainability Council, so I'll tell you a bit about that. Then I'll talk about a specific project and kind of what it means, I hope, for some of Victoria's councils. So the ISC is the peak body representing infrastructure outcomes, sustainable infrastructure across Australia, most importantly for this conversation, and also Aotearoa, New Zealand. We, like many other peak bodies, we run training, we run events, all of that sort of thing you would expect. But the thing that makes us different is we work with industry to set the standard for both helping to inform the design, planning, design, building, and operating of infrastructure, as well as running the independent scheme that verifies that the outcomes associated with relevant assets are being achieved. So people are probably more familiar with the Green Building Council. There are sort of siblings or cousins, and the simple way as we talk about it, they do vertical, i.e. buildings, and we do horizontal. In terms of where we work, oh no, sorry, Jim, I forgot to set my timer. Anything could happen. This could go on forever. I'm going to talk about a particular tool that we have for projects between about $10 and $100 million worth of value in capex, but we do work. And the point there is we don't actually currently have any Victorian councils on our books. We'd love to, which is partly why I'm here now. But we work on things like the Westgate Tunnel, the much loved suburban rail loop, Melbourne Metro, and also regional programs like Princes Highway East, the Traralgon to South road upgrades, and so on. And then, as I say, in terms of these sort of more council relevant tools, we work with Wellington City Council on walking and cycling paths. We do waste facilities, green infrastructure and open space, local roads and bridges. If you're ever in Brisbane, walk across Kangaroo Point Bridge, which is a Brisbane City Council asset. It's got a nice ISC plaque on it. And we do water assets, and that's really what I'm going to talk about now in the context of Parks Council up in New South Wales. It's a very much a rural council, about 15,000 people in central west New South Wales. One of its biggest challenges, it's a long way from any water sources. And so what this means is that not only have they historically been extremely water vulnerable, but it's also been extremely costly. Excuse me. Oh no, I always forget I have slides. Parks. So part of what they did was looking at their water vulnerability. They didn't just look at the assets that needed replacing. They also ran a climate risk assessment. What that led to was an endeavour to make water more available for community and better secure council assets. They did a 50-year climate risk assessment. They ended up building 2 new treatment facilities, advanced water recycling, sewage pump station, and a rising main zone inflow. And they also built, which is partly what you can see in the solar panel image, 197 solar panels that meant that a huge contribution to offsetting the costs of the energy required for all of those sites. One of the things that Andrew Francis, the Director of Infrastructure who led this project, said, not just the quote down at the bottom, but the cost of pursuing a rating was far outweighed by the benefits. And importantly, the commitment to an IS rating led to parks getting much more generous funding from the New South Wales government. So what does all this mean in terms of kind of outcomes and benefits? So using this really consistent framework that really helped to inform and to guide the development of the asset, they had a much more informed and capable team, both within the sustainability team, but also beyond in engineering, open spaces, finance, and so forth. That's part of the quotation you see down in the bottom right of the solar panels. It enhanced the relationship with New South Wales government, and importantly, as I mentioned, access to more cash. Given that this was titled Community Benefits Through Infrastructure, I think it's also really important to highlight that there was a 20% uplift in ecological value around this quite large site, and that was independently verified using the AIS rating system. To give you a sort of a sense of what that was, so that included the former sewage plant being turned into wetlands that now supports native birds, turtles, frogs, yabbies, 16 kilometers of pathways, cycleways, so runners and cyclists are using it. It's also attracting bird watchers, and they hadn't thought about this beforehand, but they've seen quite an uplift in ecotourism as a result. One of the really great outcomes we know that as a result of this is, and it shows that it kind of worked, was that during the 2019-2020 droughts, the water was still readily available, particularly because of the water recycling, and that meant that their heat refuges and open space was able to continue serving their functions, and people kept coming to see the bird life and so forth. So the benefits were not only just those immediate outcomes, but also the cash kept coming in. So we've got many, many stories like that, and we would love to be working more across Victorian LGAs so you can all get those benefits as well. Oh, and I'm passing to Chris Speed from RMIT. And in doing that, let me say how delighted I am that RMIT is a partner of the ISC and have now just recently completed their first graduates who are accredited professionals, so they can work on your projects. They're good to go.
Thanks, Toby. That's great. Right, I'm going to try and push you off screen then and see if I can have a crack at this. I'm assuming that, come on computer, that works okay. So look, I'll just 5 minutes. I'm going to put myself on the clock here. Just a bit of background. So look, I'm a professor in design for regenerative futures. I was hired a couple of years ago to help a big university. You know RMIT. You all know RMIT. It's 103,000 students, mind-blowing. We include TAFE, so really wide. I've never been in a university that deals with such a wide sector of learners, really, from pre-university, if you like, to 16, all the way up to mid-career, so on and so forth. The simple job we had was that we knew we had, and maybe some of your industries as well, a very silo-orientated economy. And it wasn't really helping us address these ecosystems of wicked problems, which Sarka has a diagram for on the left. So simply put, I was hired with a suite of people to think about a cross-university, cross-disciplinary teaching, research and engagement initiative. If you imagine we've got chemists now, we've got physicists, we've got social scientists, geographers, artists, designers, beginning to work together to really address what a university should be doing. And a university should, of course, be an active agent in any ecosystem, any economy. But I think we all found ourselves really turning into an ivory factory. So look, that's the background. And I work with many colleagues now across all of these different sectors, these departments, to really address systemic problems. I think Gemma was interested in one of our things. So we have an undergraduate minor. We hope by 2028 to have all students across RMIT choosing to take this minor. You might imagine they have majors in physics or in design. But what we want to do is give them a horizontal minor that allows them to address regenerative thinking, post-sustainability thinking. And the one we just thought we'd pull out today is a little course we're running. It's a tiny example of how the ecosystem is very present in all of our lives. We've been working with Street. You're probably aware of Beck and the Street team over at QVM, and they're very aware, very present, very surrounded by all of the challenges of when we think about a degenerative food system from field to fork and back again. On balance, it's a true ecosystem of wicked problems. And what we're doing is we're working with students in just a few weeks' time. It's semester 2 in a few weeks' time. And those students coming from only 10 different undergrad programs this year, we go to 30 next year, and then we uncap and have all students. And we have those students really starting to think about the small interventions in these ecosystems. What can you do to turn toward more regenerative potentially more sustainable, certainly circular modalities. So that's all we do, really. We bring to bear all of these siloed areas. These students have been cut into silos, separated out to help them think. Now, Gemma suggested come up with a quote. Look, the students are really new to us, but this one came in through some coursework just yesterday, and I find it stunning, actually. What changed was not my understanding that systems are interconnected. And look, folks, you probably are all very aware, as this student is, that that's a truth. What changed was my understanding of how disconnection is actively produced. And the semester just passed repeatedly revealed that separation is often not an ecological reality, but a consequence of the design, the infrastructure, the measurement systems, economic structures, and cultural assumptions that really we all do. And I've just returned to my own university. It is an instrument for separation. The students talk about loneliness. They talk about the cost of living crisis, in which food and fuel then become huge touch points, flare points, and beginning to think of how they collaborate and they work, and how institutions like my own, again, need to recover a sense of collaboration, sense of community, if you like, relationships. And those are the kernels of, we hope, of a way to address wicked problems. Short and sweet, but I'm not sure who I'm handing over to now, so I'll stop sharing.
Chris, that was absolutely perfect. And you brought to light some of the themes that have been coming through today, the kind of connections across. And the next presenter is going to talk about something deeply interconnected, our underground drainage systems and waterways in Melbourne. Ali Reza.
Thank you, Gemma. So let's share my slides here. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Atturra. I'm urban technology specialist in a smart city incubator in Melbourne City Council. And today I'm talking about one of our projects, award-winning project, stormwater sensing project. So City of Melbourne, like I believe that other council as well, manage a massive drainage network. We have around 22,000 drainage pits, around 20 gross pollution traps, 9 pumping stations, 6 stormwater harvesting system, and around 400 kilometers of underground drainage. So, and like other cities, City of Melbourne facing different challenges like aging the infrastructure, climate change, the budget constraint, community expectation, and so on. So just really on some reschedule or the scheduled the maintenance, it's not really any more efficient. So we try to, for this project, we try to leverage technology to understand or to improve visibility of our drainage network and provide data and data evidence base for the proactive maintenance for our drainage team or city infrastructure team. We installed 30, we installed different type of sensors in 30 key locations, and to monitor water level, debris, and possible blockage. And as I said, help our drainage team or the city infrastructure team to prioritize inspections and maintenance activity and using the real-time data. So, but what made this project different? So, this project was, includes different stakeholders from the smart city, from the drainage team in the drainage engineering team or city infrastructure, technology and data governance, community development, and external vendors. So we should work all together constructively to have the better outcome to provide, as I said, the data evidence, the project. We focus not only the collecting data, because we believe that we don't leverage or we don't install or don't technology in just sake of the technology. We try to use the technology, gather data to solve some challenges. So it wasn't also just only about data, it's also embedding sensor data into the operation decision making to help the other team, in this case, city infrastructure or drainage engineering, to support them and they overcome their challenges, and also help establish governance standards and lessons learned that are now being used across the different projects. So the project was not only about sensor, it was about helping maintain the maintenance team to make better decisions with data. It wasn't only about sensor technology, it's about data, it's about solving the challenges. what does that outcome benefit? So even in this very small scale, so just installed SenSen at 30 locations, we could see the value that this project had in early stage of the project. It's give us really good visibility of the drainage for the 30 key location that we installed the sensors. We installed mainly around the pump station or some pits that close to a river, and it's really supported the more proactive maintenance. You can see this on the graph that I just brought for this example. It's a sensors that was close to the pump station, and we could see the subnormal water levels go there, see that there, and so it shows that some problem there. So it could help out the drainage team to go to inspect the problem and fix the issue. So it's reduce the reliance on just purely on reactive inspection and identify and address potential issue before something happens. So this data really provide more visibility about drainage, underground pits, and the drainage to provide some proactive maintenance and just minimize the risk of something like a water surge or something happened for the community. So if I want to provide the lesson that I learned, I need to talk about 1 hour. It's not just even 5 minutes. It's a 1 hour. Speak about the lesson that I learned. As I said, this was just different team we work together. It was the challenging works. But if I want to summarize it, I can summarize in 3 main lessons that I learned. So the key is to do early engagement with the operational team or the key stakeholders. It's early as possible. We engage with the stakeholders, main stakeholders. It's make it more successful project. And again, I just emphasize that technology alone is not enough. Operational ownership is the crucial. So you need to think about operationalizing the sensor. So just installing technology, getting data is not enough. You need to see how you can operationalize the program. And pilot projects should focus on equally on operationalized outcome and technical performance. Again, so just linking the pilot, linking the technology and data to operationalize to technical performance. What's the main reason? Is the main reason or the end of the outcome? It's to help and solve the challenges, not just to install the sensor and collect some data that's end of the day is not really useful. And if I want to just take one takeaway, so the stormwater sensing program really demonstrate how is valuable the smart city technology. And it's a smart technology is not just the sensors, and it's not just about technology, it's not about in the data, it's also ability to turn data into better operational decision. It's to how it's possible to leverage technology and data to solve complex challenges and at the end of the day provide better services for our community. And thank you so much, and thank you, MAVs, for giving us this opportunity to share this technology on this project. And hand over to Matter from Karen from Matter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks, Alireza. And it was great working with the City of Melbourne team on installing some of our sensors in those. Just checking you can see my slides. Great, thank you. So I think that's a good segue into what I'm talking about today, smart stormwater monitoring at scale. So we're working with the City of Monash, and we've installed over 300 sensors, the stormwater sensors in their pits. So I'm IoT applications manager here, been working with City of Monash for over 3 years, and we've been kind of developing this solution and now scaling it up. So as Alireza said, it's about solving an issue, and the issue that they had was a visibility gap in stormwater. So City of Monash has 50,000 stormwater pits across their municipality. Inspections, they ran on fixed schedules, so some pits will be inspected twice a year, some 6 times a year, not the actual pit condition. So what was happening inside the pit was kind of hidden above ground. So sometimes that meant crews inspected clear sites, while other pits went unnoticed that were blocked. And the few costs involved, and this is where City Monash kind of built out their return on investment, was the flooding risks, so those kind of insurance claims that Justin mentioned earlier, and then also the wasted effort going to the wrong assets. So we worked on seeing how we could change that and developed a solution. So what we tried to do is move from scheduled guesswork to live network data, and City of Monash is now one of Australia's largest stormwater IoT deployments. So I think Monash were kind of leading the way. They, about 3 or 4 years ago, put out a tender for trials. So we competed against a number of trials and came out on top. And now we've installed 300 level and light sensors in the stormwater pits across the municipality. These sites were chosen using incident history, complaint data, and maintenance schedule. So the council have about 3,000 assets they call problematic assets in their municipality, where they go to inspect them every year on a schedule, and they picked a subset of 300 that were particularly problematic, and they spent most time on. How our devices work, they're level sensors. They send a message once every hour. So level and also light to detect blockages in the throat or the grate of the pit. And sorry, we've gone back there. So then they send over, each of them has a SIM card, and they send over cellular connectivity to our LiFo platform. So the LiFo platform turns this raw sensor data into operational outcomes, so they can provide clear maintenance priorities to the council. And yeah, that's what we're working through now. And just to give some context on where we actually installed the devices. So if you ever look down, you'll see these everywhere around junction pits. They're the kind of larger ones you'd see maybe in the middle of the road, usually large pipes underneath it. And we track levels of water in those pits. Side entry pits, this is where they run off the road, where all the leaves and litter would go. And you can see debris build up here on the right side. And then also the throat gets blocked, so that's where the light sensor comes in. Rivers and bridges, we've started installing them, telling councils when the footpath is flooded, or when comparing tides to what's actually happening in the stormwater system too. And then gross pollutant traps are just the treatment devices to catch all that litter and sediment before they reach the waterways and into the bay. So what changed once Monash could see the network? So now with over 300 devices installed, they have 200,000 plus data points every month, data that they didn't have before. What we found is about 10% of these pits had blockages caught early, and these were resolved by creating work orders in their system and sending out crews to clean the pits. That means the maintenance is now targeted, not scheduled or reactive. And one of the biggest costs was the emergency call-outs that happened from these councils. And we also saw that insights extended beyond maintenance. So what we found was some network constraints and flood risk. So as I think it was mentioned once or twice today about the aging infrastructure, and how some the capacity issues of some of the pits were highlighted. So slow draining pits that were overflowing regularly, these could be identified and brought to different teams within the council too. So what started at Monash is now scaling. So what's next for Monash? They plan to install devices in 5 to 10% of their pits. So they plan to install it across that 3,000 number, the problematic pits. They're also working on auto-generating work orders from the thresholds and alerts that we provide. So we're working to integrate into their systems. This isn't another system we want to put on top of their systems. It's something we want to integrate into what they're using already. And they'll create work orders for the teams to head out on site. That same approach is now supports 20 plus customers, City of Melbourne being one of those, across 3 countries. So we're also trialing some in New Zealand, and I was over in Vietnam installing some sensors across Ho Chi Minh City, installing them in stormwater pits and on bridges to track levels across the city. And the key takeaway from what the project that we worked on was when asset condition becomes live data, councils can prioritize maintenance, upgrades, and flood management with confidence. Thanks all. Looking forward to the questions. And I'll pass on to Susie from Atturra.
Thank you, and I'll do the check that makes sure everyone can see my screen. Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Susie from Atturra. I am the General Manager for our Technology One practice here in Victoria and also down in Tassie. And we work across organisations with their ERP programs from finance, HR, payroll, compliance rates. And what we consistently see is that councils and leaders make the right decisions to invest in modern platforms, but the experience of getting there is often way more disruptive and complex than they initially expect. We've heard today about some really fantastic innovations like AI, data, smart infrastructure, the sensors, etc. But quite often the ERP is the foundation for all of that. It's the core part of the council data set. So that goes to the basis of what AI can then sit across, whether it's analytics or agentic or any other sort of AI. And the reality is if your core systems and ways of working aren't right, none of that innovation is then able to scale. So the innovation we bring isn't just around technology, it's around how we partner with organisations and people to continually improve, simplify, optimise and modernise their operations and systems over time. What often causes the bumpy ride isn't usually the system that you're implementing, it's everything around it. So organisations that aren't fully aligned on what transformation actually means, teams that are already at capacity in their BAU to take on more, governance evolving as decisions are being made, and an expectation that that new system will solve all of your underlying process issues. And that then leads to change fatigue, manual workarounds persisting, and gaps that exist between expectation and reality. So what we focus on is innovation through partnership. We see the biggest impact in being ready and doing a readiness assessment and continuing with improvement with the organisation. So clarity up front, talking with our clients to understand what will change, not just the system, but the organisation and many employees' day-to-day task, which is often quite scary for some of our clients. You know, we do that, we'll have a dedicated discovery phase with the business. We set strong foundations early, so governance, ownership, and ways of working that actually fit the organisation, not just a template we've used time and time again that we imprint on you. And having that continuous improvement mindset, because transformation doesn't end at go live, it's where that value really starts to be realised. And then having that operational adoption which is outside what the vendor is doing, which is the technical enablement, but we're helping with the operational adoption. So how do you use it? How do you support the people in the business unit use it? Because the vendor's job is to get their software live on a deadline, and they're great at that. But then we're there to support the business operations and to provide the guardrails or a shield when the projects get a bit messy, because they quite often do. For a couple of, real world examples of our innovation that we've done across the innovation, across our recent engagements, we're working with a large council at the moment where user access for a number of systems is still being set up manually. It's slow, inconsistent, and relying on a few individuals, but integrating with an Entra ID and automating workflows. Access is now provisioned based on the role. So what took hours takes minutes. The Vic Government Department, we've worked alongside the finance team. We've progressively improved controls, reporting process, everything from data management, dashboards, and reconciliation support. And the result isn't just a system, it's a finance function with better visibility. Post go live, we've worked with their moves from CI to CI Anywhere by refining procurement workflows, approvals, more streamlined and user-friendly processes that's ready to scale. And doing this post go live is also great because once the change fatigue is settled, the end user finance teams can then see the value of the ERP system and the data in there and how powerful that is. And that's when they're ready to innovate, such as adding bespoke Power BI reporting, which we've also just done recently. And then, also looking at connecting to other companies' potentially things like the SenSen integrations that Alex spoke about earlier. So what this then creates is like quite a different experience. You know, the transformation feels more controlled and not chaotic. Teams are more confident and engaged, and the manual effort reduces over time by innovating as you go and then learning about the innovation and continuing to learn. Organisations then build capability and not just the system. So by the time you get to go live and beyond, it's not just the system improving, it's the entire organisation. And innovation is on both sides of the fence. You know, it's on the client side and it's on our side. It's not just continuous improvement, but working with a partner who's also improving based on all of the clients we've worked with over quite a number of years. I think, you know, for me today, the key takeaway, you know, innovation isn't just always about new technology, which is super important as well, but it's often about the people and how you partner, how you improve, how you make change sustainable over time, how you enhance and evolve your systems and your business operations. And in ERP transformations, that's what makes the difference between a bumpy ride and a smooth ride. Thank you.
Susie, what a beautiful way to end out our session today. Thank you so much. And as you said, totally relevant to all of the projects that we were talking about. What are the systems and infrastructure inside of our councils that connect up the data and the ways that we work in our projects? We've got 2 minutes until 1 p.m. and I do want to let us go on time as we go through the ether to our next meeting, or in person, I hope. Are there any reflections from the audience or speakers to end us? I invite you to come off mute if you would like to.
Love the systems thinking, Gemma. I mean, collectively, people are really starting to think about systems, aren't they? So each one of these lenses on systems is also a way of understanding systems. So bravo, everyone. When you put them all together, good grief, extraordinary resource.
100%. And I want to shout out Liz Johnson. To your point, Chris, like there's some really great work going on between councils, and Liz has given some talks on some of the, it's a collection of 5 incredible regional councils that are working to create sort of shared services and work through kind of different business cases and look at feasibility and whether it's possible and how they could make that work. And councils are just doing incredible work on this stuff. Thank you, Liz, for coming on screen. Big fan of your work and the work you're doing. Oh, you're on mute.
We've been really busy and we've got a really good framework in place, but have we actually done anything and had an impact yet? No, but we're ready. We're ready.
I think once begun is half done, as Mary Poppins would say. When you set up the infrastructure and you build the relationships for collaboration, that's sometimes the hardest part, right? Building trust, getting buy-in. The doing can come next, but you know, it's very brave to get to where you are.
Yeah, and nice to see you, Toby.
I love when we have these
Liz,
meetings. How small is the local government sector? We love the bouncing around. It's amazing. Thank you all for your incredible insights, wisdom, time, care, for joining us. I hope to see you at another MAVlab event soon, and have a lovely rest of your Tuesday. We see you shine.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gemma. See you.
Thanks.